Hello, my name is Helen Maldonado Baez and I will talk about the cell. Cells are the basic fundamental unit of life. So, if we were to break apart an organism to the cellular level, the smallest independent component that we will find will be the cell. A cell is the structural and fundamental unit of life. The study of cells from its basic structure to the functions of every cell organelle is called cell biology. Robert Hooke was the first biologist who discovered cells. Each cell contains a fluid called cytoplasm, which is enclosed by a membrane. Also present in the cytoplasm are several biomolecules like proteins, nucleic acids, and lipids. Moreover, cellular structures called cell organelles are suspended in the cytoplasm. All organisms are made up of cells. They may be up of a single cell that is called unicellular or many cells that is called multicellular. Various types of cells perform different functions. Based on cellular structure, there are just two types, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are single-cell organisms belonging to the domains bacteria and archaea. Prokaryotic cells are much smaller than eukaryotic cells. They have no nucleus and lack organelles. Prokaryotes are tiny, but in a very real sense, they dominate the earth. They live nearly everywhere, on every surface, on land and in water, and even inside of our bodies. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus enclosed within the cellular membrane and form large and complex organisms. Protozoa, fungi, plants, and animals all have eukaryotic cells. They are classified under the kingdom Eukaryota. They can maintain different environments in a single cell that allows them to carry out various metabolic reactions. This helps them grow many times larger than the prokaryotic cells. The cell was discovered and named by Robert Hooke in 17th century. He remarked that it looked strangely similar to the cellula or small rooms which monks inhabit, thus deriving the name.
Seeking a definition of life, biologists have concluded a set of characteristics that all living organisms share. These are the characteristics of living beings. All organisms are made of one or more cells, resulting into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. All the organisms have metabolism. They are the chemical processes that occur in our body. All organisms maintain homeostasis. It is the ability to maintain the body's internal environment. All organisms respond to stimuli, reacting to conditions outside of themselves. All organisms possess deoxyribonucleic acid, also known as DNA, as their genetic material. All living organisms grow, increasing their number, size, and volume of cells. All organisms reproduce. It can be sexual and asexual. All organisms evolve. Evolving is the ability from a group of population of a species to adapt to their environment. There are two types of cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryote cells do not have a nucleus, nor other membrane-enclosed organelles. The two main types of organisms that are prokaryotes are bacteria and archaea. Eukaryote cells are pluricellular and form bigger and more complex organisms. The main difference is that eukaryote cells do have a nucleus and other types of organelles. There are four types of organisms that can be eukaryote: fungi, plants, animal, and protists.
Good afternoon, I'm Patricio Peña, and I'm going to talk about the history of the microscope and cell theory. The microscope was invented in the 17th centuries, created to Zacharias Janssen and his son Hans, who created the first compound microscope around 1590s. Anton van Leeuwenhoek in the 17th centuries, Anton van Leeuwenhoek perfect simple microscope and first observed microorganisms such as bacteria and protozoa, significantly expanding our understanding of the microscope world. Technological advances. Over time, microscopes involve in improvement in optics and technology, from electron microscope to current atomic force microscope, enabling increasingly detailed visualization. The cell theory, the initial discovery. In 1665, Robert Hooke used a microscope to observe the thin size of cork and describing the structure as cells, making the beginning of the cell theory. Anton van Leeuwenhoek microorganisms. With this improved microscope, observed microorganisms and blood cells. In 1935, Scladen proposed that all plants were composed of cells, established the first part of the cell theory. And then in 1939, Scladen proposed that all animals were made up of cells, complementing cell theory alongside Scladen. And in 1955, Virchow added the principle that all cells originate from pre-existing cells, consolidating cells theory.
Hi, my name is Angela Silva, and today I'll explain you the different types of cell transportation. So the first one is the active one, which needs or requires an extra source of energy so that the molecules can pass throughout the cellular membrane. This is a picture of what it looks like in the cell. The second one is the passive, which does not need or require an extra source of energy for the movement to happen. In this one, the substances move from an area of higher concentration to one of lower. Here is an image representing what happens in the passive transport of cells. So, in the third one is osmosis, which is a form of passive transport that occurs when water molecules move from an area of lower concentration to one of higher concentration across a membrane that is not permeable to solute. This is an image representing what happens in the osmosis. So the fourth one is diffusion, and it happens when substances tend to move to a space of higher concentration so that its concentration becomes equal throughout a space. This is an image representing diffusion. So the facilitated diffusion are the passive movements that biological molecules or ions make across the plasma membrane by means of transport protein across the plasma membrane. This is an image of facilitated diffusion. So the sixth one is endocytosis, and it's the process of capturing a substance or a particle from outside the cell by engulfing it with the cell membrane. This is a picture of it. So the last one is exocytosis, and it's a form of active transport, and it happens when large molecules want to move from the interior of the cell to the exterior. This is an image representing it, and that will be it for my information. Thank you so much for your attention.
Hello, my name is Diego Ramos Verástegui, and I'm going to explain homeostasis. Well, it's a physiological system of processes constantly measuring and compensating for changes in the outside world that could damage internal systems. Well, it could be beneficial or not beneficial, so we have the positive and negative feedback. But I'm going to explain that later. So we have that the inventor of this meaning, or like the one that discovered this, is Walter Cannon when he proposed that every physiological variable should have homostat, a feedback system. The later term is widely used in automation. For example, a house with an automated climate can measure the temperature and decide to turn on the heat, keep it off, or even turn its cool operation. So here I'm sharing like a photo in which we have the receptor, the stimuli, the sensor, the feedback, and the control center. So in this illustration, we can say that homeostasis, if we are subject to a high temperature, our brain causes sweating. So here we can see that the receptor can be the situation in which you are in the sun in the street and you have a lot of sun. Then the stimuli is the head up, and the sensor is your brain that is it has the sensor. So as I said, we have negative and positive feedback. Well, in negative, we can have the regulation of blood pressure, and as positive, as an example, we can say the plus coagulation, that it's good. So thanks for watching.
Cause of death worldwide for young women between 15 and 19 years old. This, in adolescence, mothers such as illegal abortions, psychological violence, ill due to abandonment, child abuse, social rejection of the mother, school dropouts, and multiple problems of health for both the mother and the baby. Latin America. In Latin America, the number of pregnancies is increasing, which indicates something is failing in the education system, on the management of sexual and reproductive health at an early age. The great problem here is that the families have these taboos or stigmas that sexuality is something bad, and sexuality is still shrouded in a veil of fear and fear of shame. We have no choice but to try to break free these conditions, be very critical of the information we find on the networks, and compare it to health professionals. Addictions were seen as a problem of unwillingness and lack of values. Today, we know drugs modify the structure of the brain, and they work by dopamine. And this dopamine makes you addicted to it. Neurobiologists related dopamine also with the food and the addictions on modern people. And obesity. Mexico is the most obese country in the world. Almost 60% of the state inhabitants are obese or overweight. Um, mhm. Fast food and anxiety in obesity. According to the Ministry of Health in Mexico, around 240 billion pesos yearly are spent on junk food and only 10 billion in staple foods. This really shows how we relate the dopamine that gives the dopamine that food gives us to an extent real dangerous. And in adolescence, the in the breaks there's much more money, like 20 billion pesos spent in each break yearly at the breaks than from healthy food. From eight from 8 8 of 10 children have issues with food, and in that adolescence, we start in the changes to make a more original um, personality, and helps us to change what we what we